Everything's good, I think. Maybe. I'm going to turn on my audio just for a second, just so I can hear myself talking here when I switch over, just to make sure that you can hear me. And you can, because I can. So there we go. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing on this Friday, November 5th? It's kind of chilly here on the Middle East Coast. Let's see, what is it? It's 41 degrees outside. I looked out this morning and there was frost all over the car. Windshields were all frosted and everything. I don't have to go anywhere, which is nice, but it was quite cold. And that means it translates to being chilly in my shop. So if you see over here, right there, can you see that? That is my fan. That is one of my little heaters going. And then I have another one over here that is also running in the shop just to try to raise my ambient air temperature up just a little bit. Because like I said, it's 41 degrees outside and it's currently 62 in the shop. So bearable, that's why I have my sweatshirt on. But it is bearable out here. It's not super cold. I'm sitting on this wooden stool and my butt's kind of cold, but I'll get over it. But anyway, so what's going on today, guys? I was trying to think of like, what could I do besides just building stuff to just kind of have a discussion. And well, before I get into that part, I got to talk about Facebook. Because I don't know how many of you all use Facebook. I mean, I'm sure there's a large percentage of people who use Facebook. Obviously, there's like 7 billion people who use Facebook, right? But I'm talking in terms of like maybe as a business page or a professional page or something like that. Maybe if any of you all try to sell things through Facebook. And my general experience with Facebook as of recently has not been that great. I'm a little soured on the Facebook, and I'm not sure what to do exactly, but I know I will probably be making some changes to the way that I do some things. Not my live stream. This is all based on stuff that I sell. So to give you a little background, all of the bases that I just finished and completed and lacquered and got them all inside, and you know they're in my temperature controlled setting, curing up and everything else. I did a photo shoot on them the other day and I put a machine in them. I use a background. I've got photography lights. I take pictures of them from all different angles to make them look pretty and to give people a good idea of what they would be paying for if they buy one. And then what I do typically is I will post those to my Facebook business page that I have. It's called Sewing Machine Bases and More. I think that's what I've got it called on there. And that's just a page on Facebook that is solely dedicated to those sewing machine bases. And I list them for sale on there. I kind of give little photo updates as I'm building to show people what's coming next and things like that. But I list them for sale on there, and I do it so that for a couple of reasons. One, I still have to use like PayPal to get money, you know, so I'll send an invoice, but I can do that without getting a fee charged for just the service of listing it, which is what you would get if you sold on eBay or Etsy, which is better than eBay. So when I sell them on Facebook, I don't have to pay anybody else a fee. I do have to pay a credit card service fee because pretty much anywhere you accept a credit card, you have to pay a fee, and that's true everywhere. But that is a very minimal cost. And then I charge actual shipping costs to people. So they really aren't paying, I mean, they're paying for it, but I don't charge tax. But I think that's kind of like, I've already paid tax on this wood. I don't think I should have to tax people just because I change it into another form that you should have to tax it again. I think that's kind of stupid. And I think it's stupid that somebody in California has to pay state tax on something they buy from me in Virginia. That also I think is stupid. So anyway, that being said, I don't charge tax when I sell through my Facebook. When I invoice them for the price of the item and the shipping cost. And I calculate exact shipping costs, so that's the fee they pay. So that works out pretty well, and I've got a pretty good following on my pages. I don't know, 400 or 500 people that follow that page. And so I can usually sell some things on there. Not everything sells on there. Some people aren't comfortable buying from Facebook, like, oh, here's my money and I hope that I get what I want. That's why I actually don't. Some people only do like the friends and family on PayPal, because that way there is no fee for PayPal. But to me, that's cheating, because you don't offer the person who's purchasing any sort of guarantees, like if their product doesn't show up or anything else. They're just out their money. And you could just say sorry and leave them hanging. Whereas if you do a standard invoice, they pay with their credit card, then you have the assurance that you get through your credit card, where you could file a grievance or a report on through your credit card if something happens, if whatever you get is not what you wanted or whatever. You could file through your credit card and go that way. So it does give people a little bit more. So that's why I always go with the credit card option and not the friends and family. Some people just want friends and family. They're like, I don't want to deal with the card fees or anything else. I'm like, you know what? Everybody needs to make money. And so I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to people getting, if they offer a service, like accepting a credit card is a service, right? The people who are taking the credit card companies, they are providing a service. They should get paid for their service. So I'm not one of those people who thinks that everything should be free, because I don't give my stuff away for free. Why should everybody else, right? Anyway, so that's my process. I list my things on Facebook for sale. If somebody wants one, I send them an invoice. I calculate their shipping for their address. I send them an invoice for the price and the thing, and then stuff. But here's my problems with PayPal or with Facebook. A couple things. One is the way for people to get in touch is that you basically have to use Messenger. You have to use Facebook Messenger. I'll expand on this in a second, but you have to use the Facebook Messenger app to send me a message. I even put a link on there. Send this person a message if you're interested or whatever. They can send me a message. I get their message. They tell me what they want, everything else. And then we start our correspondence to work out the purchasing process, right? Well, Facebook Messenger sucks. I don't get notifications when new messages come in. Trying to actually find their messages and such is so disjointed. They try to push everything to a business suite if it's on a page and not your personal page. And there's so many issues in trying to find people's stuff. I had 5 messages come in about the same base yesterday, but I never got a single message on my phone. I never got a single thing on there that pinged it that said, hey, you had a message and you should respond. I never got one. So when I was going through and checking, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's any activity on my Facebook. All of a sudden I see all these messages in there. I'm like, well, crap, these were from like hours ago. And then I go back, and then, so that's my first problem, is just dealing with the fact that the communication through Facebook is disjointed. It's convoluted. It doesn't work well. I don't get notifications for when those messages come in necessarily. And it's just not really a great way to do things, because, like I said, I'll have 4 or 5 people wanting the same base. If I got that message the first time and they said, hey, I want this one or whatever, I would go back to that base and mark it as sale pending, so that people who are looking at it after that point in time would know, and then they would maybe hold off on sending me messages saying, hey, I want this one. But no, I get like 4 people wanting the same thing, and I don't know it. So over a period of time, they don't know. They think, oh, I'm going to get this. I'm just waiting for them to respond. It's frustrating. So that's the first thing. It's Facebook Messenger. It's a mess. I won't even get into how the pages work because they're stupid. But the other thing is, sometimes customers, well, not sometimes, most customers can't follow instructions. They just can't. Every one of my postings I put in there, I say, look, if you're interested in this, send me a message, let me know which number bases. I put a number, I put a little business card in the first photo of each one. I write the number on there. And it's in the title of the post. Full size cherry base with storage, base number 1. I say, send me the item number you want and your zip code so that I can calculate shipping to your general location if you're interested in this. I get people who don't understand these. These are pretty simple instructions, but nobody seems to be able to follow them. I mean, for whatever reason, I can't get people to follow these very simple instructions. I'll get stuff like, how much is it? Well, it's listed in the description. Why aren't you reading the description of what you're looking at? They just look at a picture and go, bee. It's like, no, read the description. That's the other thing. Nobody reads the descriptions because I tell you exactly how to buy. I put it in the description. I tell you what I need from you and then what I will do to follow up. Nobody reads the descriptions, and it's really frustrating. So that's the other issue, is that the customers who are buying these things aren't really doing their part in reading the descriptions and knowing exactly how to proceed. So those are my two big issues. It's very frustrating for me. Sometimes I'll deal with the messenger issue, and then I deal with customers who aren't paying attention to, well, how much is this? Well, how much is, this? And I'm like, well, how much is shipping? I'm like, I don't know where you live. If you read the thing and sent me your zip code, then I could calculate it, but you didn't tell me where you live. And it's just one of those things that it's not, at the end of the day, they're not big, but all the little things add up to just drive me kind of crazy. And it makes it harder. Now, on the flip side, when I list things on Etsy, it's like any store that you would go to. I have a product. If you want it, you put it in your cart, you buy it, it calculates shipping, boom, you're done. I don't really have to interact with people about the stuff. And once they've purchased it, it's in their cart. Now, once it's in their cart, that doesn't mean it's gone from the store. It's the person who actually pays for it who gets it. So multiple people could put it in their cart. I've had that where it's like, oh, 6 people have this in their cart. That's great. It goes to the person who actually pushes the button to buy it. But there's no arguing, and I don't have to follow up and say, oh, I'm sorry, there's other people interested in this and whatever. I don't have to deal with any of that. So that is the beauty of the Etsy thing, is that it's just like any other store. If you see the product you like, you put it in your cart, you hit buy, it'll calculate your shipping and everything else. You pay, boom. I get the message, hey, this was purchased, here's your money's in the thing. You can go ahead and ship, and then I take care of stuff, and it's pretty easy. So I could just go the Etsy route and not worry about it. It's not bad. Their setup it's not the best, but it's not the worst either. In terms of their fees, I want to say they're either 5% or 7%, somewhere in there. eBay is 10% straight across, and I'm just like, eBay can pound sand because I'm not paying that. Because eBay doesn't do jack diddly except say, look, we're the biggest thing in the world and people can find it. It's like, okay, for that you're paying 10%. Etsy, it's less. And so the fees are less, but then I also pay a credit card fee, and also their billing thing has changed, and it gets a little confusing sometimes. It's like, okay, for example, I just sold a table, right? I just sold my featherweight table, and it was going to California, so expensive shipping, right? So the shipping is like $100 to send it out there. And that was included in, when they paid for it, it was like they paid the price of the table, they paid tax for where they live. Sad but true, I don't have any control over that. Etsy automatically assigns tax to them for where they live. So it was like $50 in tax, plus $100 calculated on, I put in the weight and the size, and they calculated it was $100 for shipping. So they paid $650 for this table. So here's the thing, when they sent me my money, they subtracted all my fees and there was no money in there for me to cover shipping. And I was like, okay, so basically I ended up with like $475, we'll say. I have no idea what it was, but it was like $475, okay? Okay, so then it was like time for me to ship. I wrapped it up like a mummy in foam and everything else and packaged it really well and boxed it up and went to go get my shipping label. Well, the shipping label cost $98, but my thought was, they didn't send me that $100 to pay for that shipping, so where is that $98 that the customer paid? Is that being held in an account that they will take out of? Or are they gonna come and bill that to me? I have no idea. It's so crazy because you can't really find these things out in their stuff. So that's why Etsy's a little frustrating to me. Not always, but just a little bit. So I think what I'm looking for is my own website solution for selling stuff. I just need a product site. And I just want to set something up simple. I want to be able to add an item with photos, a description, here's the price. I will have calculated shipping. And if you go through and look at my stuff, you'll see the items that are for sale. You buy it, you put it in your cart, boom, off it goes. It might still have tax. I don't know if there's a way, I'd have to look and see. It might automatically calculate tax. That's really kind of out of my control sphere. I'd like it not to charge tax, but that might come back to bite me in the end if I did that. And then shipping, I can't really do anything. I'm not going to do free shipping because depending on where an item goes, it could cost me $10, it could cost $25. I'm not going to eat $25 out of a $100 base just because you live across the country from me. So you're going to pay shipping. But I just need a simple page. I know Squarespace is a company that has website building that has specific things for e-commerce and stuff. So I'm probably going to be looking for a hopefully not expensive e-commerce site that I can just move all of my stuff to. I'll still advertise them on my Facebook page to say, hey, these are available. If you're interested, you should go check it out on my whatever Squarespace page or whatever. I might occasionally keep things on my Etsy page because sometimes if things don't sell, if I pop it on Etsy, Etsy just has a big user base, so it will sell. But I think I want to find my own vendor space, my own vendor page with things set up so that I can do that. And that way also, I'm not paying a middleman for every time I sell something. I'm not paying a 7% fee to a middleman. I get to keep most of my profits, minus credit card fees. I get to keep most of that profit to myself. So that's more money in my pocket. That means that, I can pay for more things and just in general, keep more of what I make. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. So if anybody has any suggestions, if you know of any good e-commerce sites that are really customizable but won't cost me, $1,000 a year to operate, because I'm trying to keep that cost down. If it was something where I had to pay like, I don't know, $10 to $15 a month for, I'd probably be okay with that because I would more than make up for that in profits that I am able to pull back in. So the other thing is that it takes a while to build up a user base and a customer base. So, I would be out of pocketing those monthly expenses for a while until I could start recouping them with sales that I would generate through that space. So, but I understand those costs in doing business. It is what it is. Anyway, that is my I hate Facebook rant for the day, and I'm sorry. I know that was probably more than you wanted to hear, and that has nothing to do with woodworking, but it sort of does, because if you're running a business and you're trying to run that business and maintain it through Facebook, it's an uphill battle, and even though they try to be business friendly, they make it hard. All these changes that they make to things just make it hard. So, okay. enough of that. Let's get to my sheet here, because this is actually more fun, and this is much more woodworker related stuff. And this is kind of the title of the video today. Don't yank on my chain. So as I was messing with this wood the other day, this is the zebra wood that I cut up and milled to 3/4 of an inch. And I was thinking about it, I was like, well, this is pretty hard wood, and it's got some definite mass to it. And I was like, well, I wonder what the I say Janka, it's actually pronounced Janka. I believe the gentleman who came up with it, I don't know his whole name, but his last name was Janka, I think but I say Janka. Janka or Yanka, whichever you want. Janka worked better for my title. But it's a scale that was devised to basically give a determination to people who are using wood as to how hard that wood is. There's a lot of different things that you could do, but they don't always interact the same way between different wood species, like specific gravity and things like that. So what this guy came up with was a way of determining the actual toughness or the hardness of the wood based on a simple experiment that could be performed to that wood. And then you could perform that experiment to every wood species, and that result would be plotted on a scale, and the Janka scale, or the Janka hardness for that wood, would give you an idea basically of how hard it is as compared to other woods. So the way the process works, and this is done, I'm not sure who has done it, but there are a lot of places where they have obviously done this experiment. And the way it works is you get basically a large ball bearing, a 0.444 inch ball bearing to be exact. So you take a 0.444 inch ball bearing, you place that on a piece of wood, and then you get a press over top of it to press down on that piece, on that ball bearing, and it presses it into the wood until it has reached half the thickness of the ball bearing inserted into the wood. When it buries that ball bearing halfway in, the actual amount of force required to push it into the wood halfway is the Janka hardness for that particular species of wood. You're not going to set up a ball bearing and a press and measure force and stuff. There are plenty of places where you can find the Janka scale. You can go on to Google and type a specific wood, and you can say white oak, Janka. Put that into Google, and you'll find a listing that shows you what the Janka scale hardness is for white oak. But there are also places where you can go and look these things up, where they have tons of wood species that you can actually see what the Janka scale hardness is. The place that I pulled all of my stats from is called the Wood Database. It's wood-database.com. I should actually put that in the show notes. I did not add that in there, but I probably should. Wooddatabase.com is where I get my Janka scale hardnesses from. And they're pretty specific, and if you go look up on different places, you should get that same number. Like if I'm looking up red oak, I should get the same Janka hardness number from Wood Database as I do from any other website. They should all have that same number because it is a unified test in how you determine that. But anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to look at, because I had this zebra wood and I just got done dealing with hickory, and I'm like, I've had some really tough woods in my shop. And I wonder how they rate to each other in terms of their hardness. Hardwood means nothing, by the way. Hardwood and softwood are two terms. You'll hear them used a lot. That has nothing to do with the hardness of the wood. If you're familiar with balsa wood, which floats and you can basically like almost push your finger, you can definitely push your fingernail into it and stuff. It's super soft. It's made for making models and things like that are super light. Balsa wood is a hardwood. And there are other hardwood, there are softwoods that are much harder, like the yew tree is a softwood, but it is much harder than half of like the hardwood species. So that has nothing to do with how hard the wood is. It just happens that most of the things that are classified as hardwood do have hardwood. And most of the things that are classified as softwood do have softer wood, like pine and such. So, but the designation of what makes something softwood or hardwood has nothing to do with the hardness of the wood, right? So here's what does. It's all about the seeds. So if a tree drops its seeds encased in a shell or some other, like a fruit or something where it is covered by something else, if that seed is covered by something, that is a hardwood. Pure and simple. So if it's like an Osage orange tree, drops these little orange type things. An orange tree drops oranges with seeds inside. All of these, an apple has things in there. You know, an oak has acorns and all these things. They all have their seed encased in some sort of covering. That's what makes them a hardwood. Maple trees drop their little helicopters. The seed pod is inside that little helicopter thing. It is not a free-falling seed. Now, a softwood drops its seeds onto the ground without a covering. So pine cones, those cones are the seeds. They are there. They're not encased in anything. So that's basically the designation. Things that just drop their seeds on the ground where they are without a covering is a softwood. Most people think of pine cones and things like that. If it drops inside of a covering, it's a hardwood. Pure and simple. That's the basic explanation of softwood and hardwood. So when you think, oh, I got to go to the hardwood store and get myself some wood, but I won't find pine there. That's not necessarily true. You might find pine at a hardwood store. It really, just hardwood is just, it's a term now used by woodworkers to talk about the woods that we use. And usually it means everything that's not pine. Because pine, especially is used as construction material and such, is thought of as a softwood. It is a softwood for most part, so it's in the softwood category. Anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to look at the species of wood that I typically use in my shop and what their hardnesses are compared to each other, because I've bought some we'll call them exotics like this right here, and it's pretty hard. But I also bought hickory, which is not an exotic wood. It's just a standard American hardwood, which is pretty inexpensive and such, but its hardness is way up on the scale. So I thought it'd be interesting to just kind of take a look and see what I've got in terms of wood and where it ranks on the Janka scale, just for general information. As a general reference, everyone is familiar with 2x4s. 2x4s are typically eastern white pine. It's a soft, like push your fingernail into it type wood. It is mainly used for construction and things like that. Eastern white pine is probably the most popular of all the pines in terms of people making things. And I'm walking over here to my wood because I actually have a 2x4, or part of a 2x4. So this is eastern white pine, and this is kiln dried, which means all the moisture's out of it and stuff, but it's a fairly, I mean, I can rub my fingernail across here and make little marks in it and such, but this is a fairly soft wood. So eastern white pine has a hardness, and this will just give you a point of reference, has a hardness of 380 on the Janka scale. Okay, so considered a pretty soft wood in the grand scheme of things. I actually have, I think it's up here. Hang on a second. Let me see if this is it. Yep. So this, even though this looks like a big, giant piece of wood here, it's really thick. It's not that heavy. I didn't look this one up. Let me look this one up real quick. This is basswood. So I have this, a lot of guitars are made of basswood because it's light. And so people like to have a light guitar. So basswood is slightly lighter, or slightly more dense or more hard than pine. It has a Janka scale number of 480. But it's usually considered a pretty light wood. I mean, it's easy to work with. It cuts like butter, and that's why people like using it. It's fairly light, so that's why it likes to get used for guitars. Typically, I mean, it has a pretty boring grain pattern, so it's not like a really pretty wood in terms of its grain, which is why a lot of times you find a guitar that's made of basswood, it's going to be painted. It's not going to be one of those clear finishes that shows off the wood grain and such. So anyway, those are pretty typical and give you an idea, but this is a hardwood, even though it's soft, it's a hardwood, it's super light. I'm gonna stick it back up here because I just don't have the room. So other woods that I have that I've worked with, my most common wood species that I use is cherry. I use cherry all the time. It's one of my most commonly used, here's a piece right here. I use it for basses. I've used it for speaker cabinets. I use it for a lot of different things. Cherry is really easy to work with. It is really a pretty hard wood. So it's got some good durability to it. I wouldn't make floor decking out of this, but it is a pretty good wood. So this cherry, 950 on the Janka scale. That gives you an idea. Now we're getting into some harder woods. And what's next on my scale? So this is a little surprising. You would think it would be tougher, but it's not. So next on the scale is walnut. Walnut is not, surprisingly, not as tough as like oak or something, which I always thought it was as hard as oak. It's not even close. It's actually much closer to cherry. The crazy thing is that the weight of walnut it's much heavier. So it's a more dense wood, but its hardness is very close to cherry. So cherry was 950, walnut 1010. So 1010 for walnut. And we're going to get to all these fun things. Next up is red oak. I don't have a piece of red. I've got some red oak behind me. It's kind of big and I don't want to pick it up. Red oak is next on my list in terms of hardness. So that is 1220. 1220 for red oak, which everybody considers red oak a pretty hard wood, right? And it's made for a lot of durable furniture and things like that. So red oak cabinets and such, a very durable wood, right? Next on the list, and I don't have a piece here, but I've used it in a bunch of stuff. I actually have on my my vise right here is a piece which is white ash. So ash is typically a very dense, hard wood. It actually, in terms of tools and such, it can be very very hard on your tools, but it only has a hardness of 1320, so harder than the red oak, but not as hard as a lot of other woods that I have here. So kind of interesting there. I thought the ash would be a much higher on the scale, but it's actually on the lower end of the spectrum for my scale here. So next on the hardness scale, we have white oak. Now white oak is one of those that is very hard. A lot of this depends on the way the wood grain is and such. White oak is not as easy to work with as something like walnut. It has a little bit more of a splintering quality to some of the wood grain and such, but that has more to do with the wood grain structure than it does with the hardness of the wood. So white oak, one of those that I use all the time, 1335 on the hardness scale. So this is kind of, by the way, the scale runs up to 4,000 at the high end, just to give you an idea. So we're still kind of on that lower, quarter of the scale in terms of hardness. But there's not many that hit that 4,000 mark. Most of them Most of them are in this middle section. So, all right, so white oak. I've got right above that, hard maple. Hard maple is another one of those that I really love to work with. It doesn't stain very well, but it does accept dye stains. It usually, you can get it with figure and stuff. There is a soft maple and a hard maple. There are two different designations, and that does have to do with the hardness of the wood, and they appear on a different spot. I usually deal with hard maple. So hard maple has a hardness of 1,450. So harder than the oak, ash, walnut, and cherry. All right, what else we got here? Got all kinds of stuff going on here. Oh, so I found this to be interesting. This is sapele, or sapele, depends on how you want to talk about it or how you want to pronounce it. But this is sapele, or sapele. And I love the grain of this. It's actually in the mahogany family. I'm going to just show you the board here. So this is in the mahogany family. It has this kind of a rust color to it. It changes a little bit with oxidation, but it's a really pretty wood. It's actually lighter. Yeah, maybe about the same, but it's lighter than like like this was my walnut. It's lighter than the walnut. It's not. So that's why I said you can't really base this on weight or specific gravity or things like that. That's why they use that Preston test, because the sapele has a Janka hardness of 1,500. Hard maple was 1,450. This is 1,500, and yet it's a light wood. It cuts really well. It can be a little splintery on the edges and such. You have to watch the end grain, but it's a great wood. But it's super hard, right? 1,500 on the scale, that's pretty hard. What else do we have here? Okay, now we're getting into some of my more less used woods, because A, they're either so hard that they're a pain in the rear to work with, because they are really tough wood, or B, they're what are called exotics. Most of them are not found in the North American wooded areas, and so they usually come from Central America, South America, Africa, things like that. That's where you actually find most of your super hard woods. But not this one. This one is hickory, and hickory is it's an interesting wood. I just finished up some projects with it. You can see the grain on this stuff is kind of it's a very rustic looking, but hickory has a Janka hardness of 1820. So if you've been watching me, you've seen me complain about using hickory and what a pain in the butt it is. 1820 for the hardness. But that is followed right after that by this, which is the zebra wood, right? The zebra wood that I just got and was working with, which I didn't find to be that difficult to cut. This is the zebra wood right here. And this obviously has a very crazy, cool grain pattern to it and such. The zebra, what did I say? Hickory was 1820. The zebra is only 1830. So only 10 higher on the scale. So it is also a very hard wood. So we'll see when we get into working with it how that translates to dulling my tools and such. How easily does it cut? Like I can tell you, when I was cutting those hickory boards and I was like using on a crosscut or the miter saw, as I'm going through a thick board, it's like it was grunting and straining through that super hard wood. I don't think this is going to be the same, so we'll see. I found that to be interesting though. So zebra getting near the top of my scale. I've got another one here. I don't know how you pronounce this. I've heard it pronounced different ways, but let me find out which one it is. Paduk or Padok. Paduk. This is it right here. It's kind of got a really cool color to it. You can't really see any grain stuff to it right now because this is all very rough sawn, but this is what it looks like. This is a very straight grain wood, but it's pretty cool. It's nice. It's a very heavy wood. This is a very heavy board. So the Padauk, it gets used as an accent color in things like cutting boards and things like that because of the rich color in it. The Padauk is 1970 on the scale. So we went from 1820 and 1830 for the Hickory and Zebra up to 1970 for the Padauk. So pretty tough. Next on the list is this beautiful board. Now this is a dense board. This thing weighs a ton. This weighs more than that Padauk board that I just lifted up. This is gorgeous wood. Give you a little close-up of this. So this is Bubinga. I mean, is that gorgeous? Look at the grain on that stuff. This is Bubinga. I picked this up at Woodcraft. I was just there one day and they had some shorts sitting around and these were already milled. And I was like, that is some gorgeous wood. The grain I'd never seen like that. So Bubinga is 2410 on the hardness scale. And that is a dense, hard board. I'm going to tell you right now. I've cut it into smaller pieces. I've made some pin blanks out of it. I made some, I can't remember what they call those on the sides of a knife, the stiles or the sticks or whatever. I made the handle for a knife with it. It just looked really cool. But anyway, 2410, super, super hard. Next on the list is this species right here. Also a very, very heavy board. And this one, where did I write it down? Yeah, so I've got it written on the edge here. This is, what is this? Jatoba. So I'll kind of give you a look here. I think this is also referred to as Brazilian cherry. But this is probably right now one of the most hard woods I have in my shop. This stuff is, let's see, Bubinga was 2410. This is 2690. It's really tough. And it's really super heavy. That's the other thing is a lot of these boards, as they get higher on that hardness scale, their mass and their density gets heavier, harder. So that's a very heavy board. The last one I do not have, I thought I did. I think I used it and I haven't replaced it yet, but I had some Cocobolo 2960. That's the hardest wood I've ever used. 2960 on the hardness scale. And just for general reference, I've got some others. So my table here, so you can see my workbench. This was made from southern yellow pine. This is very different from the pine. I won't say very different, but it is different from the pine that you use in construction lumber. This stuff is more dense. So I think we said construction pine was 380 for like the 2x4. My southern yellow pine is 870. So softer than cherry, but not by much. And the reason I like it is that I don't like something like super hard. Like I don't want a massively hard table. I like something that has a little bit of give and a little bit of whatever to it. It makes it easy to clean and sand off and stuff. So I really like my southern yellow pine table. A lot of people will use birch for their tables, which I have had, where'd it go? I had a piece of birch here. Which was yellow birch. I can't believe I don't have my piece of yellow birch here. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, here's some. So I just keep a couple pieces now. I made a cabinet, a little rolling cabinet stand for my wife out of this. So this is yellow birch. This is pretty tough wood, 1260 on the scale. So that is actually harder than red oak, but a little bit lighter than like white ash. A lot of people will make benches out of birch. You'll see if you look at some of the ones that you can buy, I can't remember what their name is. I want to say the Jorgens or whatever, that's not right. The Scandinavian ones are usually made of birch, and it's a pretty good wood, very stable. not super heavy, but holds up pretty tough. So I found this to be pretty nice wood. And then just another one that people will get from like the home store, just to kind of round things out, is poplar. And I use poplar sometimes for making signs and such. It's a better wood grain, in my opinion, than it's a prettier wood grain than pine, but it's still, you know, kind of a softer wood. It is a hardwood, but it's a softer wood. And poplar is at 540 on the scale, so harder than your standard pine 2x4, which is, like I said, that white eastern white pine, which was at 380. This is 540 for poplar. And this is kind of what poplar looks like. I use this, like I said, I'll make carved signs and such out of this. It's got a really nice wood grain. You can stain it. It's a little blotchy, but not bad. So there you go. That's the entire range of wood species that I've used. The funny thing is, I think just in North America, I'm going to go back and look at this, the wood database. Remember, it's wood dash, oh, hang on a second. Wood dash database .com. So it's really kind of interesting because if you go to the wood database, you can sort by different parameters. So if you just go to the wood filter at the top, it'll say wood filter. You can go and sort by hardwood, softwood. There's one called monocoat. I don't know what that is. But anyway, under hardwood, there are 458 species listed under hardwoods. So if you click on hardwood, then you can also sort by location. So in North America, there are 124 different hardwoods listed for North America. And that runs everything from alder to, you know, probably walnut is in there. Let me look at the end of the scale here. Yeah, so walnut being at the very end of the list. And there's different classifications of these too. It's not just walnut as a classification. There is Claro walnut, black walnut, Bastogne walnut, which Bastogne is some of the most beautiful walnut slabs you'll ever see in your life. But there's things like, oh, sycamore. I've used sycamore. I didn't mention sycamore. I don't have any in the shop right now, but I have used sycamore. Sycamore ranks at 770, so it's on the very low end of the Janka scale for woods that I've used. Not the easiest wood to use either. It can get a lot of tear out and stuff, so a lot of this stuff just depends on the grain. But anyway, that wood database, super handy if you're just curious about what you know, how hard a particular wood is in relation to something that you can relate to. Like if you say, well, I have white oak, but how hard is, you know, ash compared to white oak? You can look up the Janka scale and it will tell you, like I said, if you go to that wood database, you'll find, you can look through and find all these crazy things. Oh, there's critically endangered in North America. There's 5 trees. Let's see what they are, shall we? Let's see. Critically endangered. Wow, I did not know that. So the ash tree is critically endangered. Okay, that's scary. So there's pumpkin ash, white ash, green ash, blue ash, and black ash. But that's interesting. I had no idea that that was a critically endangered species. I like it. There's a listing here for least concern. Let's see which we care least about. Black locust, white oak, because they're everywhere, sweet gum, serviceberry, which I've never heard of, and tejocote. I have no idea. Tejocote. Tejocote? I have no idea how you pronounce that. Anyway, it's a great resource. If you really kind of want to nerd out on wood, it's just a really kind of a fun place to look and dig in and see what you've got in your wood pile and where it ranks on the scale, because that's kind of what got me into it. I was like, well, I wonder how hard this is compared to this other wood that I've used, because I was looking at this zebra wood and I was like, oh, okay, it's kind of at the higher end of the scale, and that kind of surprised me. I didn't expect it to be as hard or harder than the hickory. The hickory, I thought, was the hardest stuff I've used, without getting into some of these super exotics that I have. But anyway, very surprising, kind of fun to dig into the weird nerdiness of wood itself. All right, hey, I gotta take one quick break. I'll be right back, and then we'll start cutting some wood, because really that's just more fun than anything else. So give me just a second. Okay, sorry about that. Kids, what are you gonna do? All right, I'm gonna try to quickly just move some of this wood back into my scrap bin where it lives. half the time, part of the time. I do have some other wood projects over here that I was hoping to get to yesterday, but I did not in terms of milling, because I want to go ahead and get, oh, this is not getting milled up. I'm saving, I don't know what I'm saving this for, but it's that Bubinga, and it'll get used for something. One day, it'll be something really pretty. But yeah, it's definitely a unique wood, and I want to make sure that whatever I do with that, that it is something worthy of that gorgeous wood grain. But I do have some other boards here, and I'm gonna probably mill some of these up. This stuff, this Paduke is pretty cool looking. Problem is, some of these have colors to them that I don't know that anybody is going to be interested in. Like, does anybody want kind of an orange looking base for their sewing machine? I don't know. A lot of those woods are used as accent woods and cutting boards, or in things where there's laminated boards where they use different species. And that would be one of them. All right, scrap. Let me put this back. My little 2x4 is just sitting over here. Okay, so now we can get to the business of doing stuff with our boards. These actually stayed pretty flat. So different philosophies on milling your wood. I like to mill my wood and then clamp it to a flat surface. Some people go, oh no, you need to put stickers underneath it and let it air and everything. I don't know. There's different thoughts about keeping it from moving, as they say, or changing after you've milled it. But what I need to do is we're going to make a base with a storage compartment, which means I need a lid. I don't have any wood wide enough for that. So we're going to do some laminations, and we're going to use these boards right here that I cut off of those wider boards. This is the cutoffs. And my thought with this is to laminate several of these together and create enough width that I will have something I can use, and then maybe with the leftovers, I can laminate some different species of wood in between there, like maybe some walnut or whatever, and do something a little different. I don't know. Try something fun. So what I need to do with these, I think I'm going to get that lamination set up first, and I need to figure out. So for just 3 of these together, I need 4 and 3/4 inches wide. I'm going to just check right here. So 4, and I need at least 4.5 inches of width, and then 7 5/8. I think it was 7 5/8 of length. So usually I do 7 3/4 inches on length, and that gives me enough. But 4 and 4.5. So usually a little wider than 4.5 is good on the width. So if I measure this, just do a quick measurement on this to see how wide this is. With 3 of these together is 1.6. So if I did, 3 of those together, in general, I'm going to get 4.8. And I said I need 4.5, which would work. So I need 3 sections of this that are, what'd I say, 7 3/4. So I would need 7 3/4 lengths of this. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to get these over to the saw over here, and we will measure these out, and then we can do a glue up on them. So I need, what do I need here? I need a measure, and I need a pencil, and I already have a square over here. And I need to set up the dust collection on my crosscut saw because, yeah, dusty. All right. Okie doke. And I actually have a camera angle set up for over there, I believe. So I'm going to carry this set of boards over here. And I'm going to square these up real quick. Make sure that I'm getting right length on here. Okay, so I need to measure 7 3/4 inches and then mark that. I can just measure it on one of them. So I'm going to measure 7 3/4. And then I will strike a line across. Let me get these all squared up here. Hang on a second. Get these all squared away. And then we will strike a line on here. And then I will just use these as my measurement for the next ones. But what I'm going to do is take these, that'll be 9 boards, basically 9 little boards. And we will glue those together to make one of the lid sections. And I'm hoping, because of the way the grain is on this stuff, that it will look pretty good, even though, you know, it's going to be off a little bit from each other. They're not going to match up perfectly, but I'm hoping to arrange them so that they're pretty, so they look pretty good, made it up to each other. So let me go ahead and get my ears here in my dust collection over here. Sorry, I keep walking in front of you, but it is what it is. Oh, shoot. I forgot I have a heater on. Probably not good to have that heater on while I'm running all those things. I just popped a fuse here. Hang on. There we go. Everybody's back on. Sorry about that. Well, at least it got through my cut. Whoops. All right, I'm going to set one of these aside, or 2 of them aside. Just slide this in. Let's see. All right, I'm just going to slide this whole thing down and use one of these cutoffs to just basically get my measurement for the next one. There. Okay, cut the next section. Oops. Pull in. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Now, the one thing I just thought about, I'm gonna bring all these back over. So the one thing I just thought about is that I don't have corner supports for these bases, but I'll make those out of a different species of wood. I don't mind doing that because they basically rest inside the machine. So if it's a different species, not a big deal. And I might make it out of something. I might have some, I think I've got a thicker piece of walnut over here. So like if I clean up this piece of walnut right here, it's thick enough that I can cut off a 45 and get corner supports out of this for a base. Or I actually might have some already cut, so I'll have to look and see. But I think something dark like that would look good on the inside for corner supports. So now that I've got these cut, what I want to look at is, oh, let me take these off. What I want to look at is pairing them up. There should be a skinny one, and there should be a couple of wider ones. And I want to pair those up into sections here so that, and they're all the same height. They were all milled up the same way. I'm trying to keep the grain moving in the same direction, sort of. Get another skinny one here. And then another wide one. And that in turn, a second, grab a couple of things here. So that is not going to be wide enough. That is 3 1/4. But if I take one more section here and get a couple more wide ones and another skinny, and put these all together here. A wide one, another skinny. I want this, I don't want it to go that way. I want it to go, can't get it to go the direction I want. It's just going to be all over the place. That's okay. Can I get this going the right way? There we go. All right. So that is 4 3/4, a little over 4 3/4. So that's well within the range that we need for doing a lid. And let me move this for a second. I actually don't have my chat open. Sorry. I don't know that anybody's chatting, but I want to make sure the chat's open. So let me just, there we go. All right, so I've got, let's see if we can see these now. I've got these set up right here, and turn you a little bit this way. Get this out of the way, give you a better view. So this is what I'm looking at. I need to do a glue up now of this section. So when it's glued up, it'll be a little panel that looks like this, which is kind of cool looking, right? That's not bad. And that'll be the lid. It'll obviously be much thinner because I'll have to fit it in there, but that gives me the size that I need for doing a glue up, or doing a panel, and that'll give me the size I need for doing a lid for the side compartment. Wow, my lips do not work today. What I do need to do is get a couple of clamps. Unfortunately, I don't have any smaller clamps. I just have these big clamps. They will have to do for right now. So I've got these big clamps, and I might glue this stuff up over on my table over here. And I also need to get some tape because I don't want to get glue all over my clamp legs. Just need some regular old masking tape. That'll do. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these over to the table saw and start gluing them up to put into these clamps and make one of the things. So I've got them set here like this. I guess I could kind of just like making a cutting board. I can turn them and then I will flip them into each other here. Actually, you know, I'm gonna go the other direction. So give me a second. Oops, that way. So I will have it this way as my last one, right inside here. And then these all get turned this way. And then I will put them on the thing so I can spread some glue and make life happy here. Get my glue bottle. And you really can't see anything that I'm doing, can you? Let me fix the view here just a little bit. All right. I think that'll be a good view. I'll get rid of the micro jig here. Just put it off to the side. And then, oh, grab the glue. All right. Glue bottles, why are you so hard to use? So what I'm going to do is this. Okay. And then that all gets spread out. So I will just take my finger, spread the glue out on each one, set it into the clamps here. You know what I didn't do was put my tape down, which I should have done. So before I get started making a complete mess, I'm just going to put some put some tape on my clamp bodies. Oh, this is a crappy, I forgot this is the worst tape ever. Let me get some good tape. I've got some brand new frog tape. That's what we're going to go after here. Frog tape, be the king. And I'm just going to put a couple pieces of tape across the bars here just to keep them, probably doesn't have to be very long too. I'll have to cut these down a little bit, but that's okay. But this keeps it from getting glue all over the clamps and keeps them from working well. So we don't want that. I will probably have to cut these down at the very end, tear a little piece off, but that's okay. So I've got my piece here. That's the end piece. Take this piece, make sure my glue's spread all over. We don't want a bad glue joint. We don't want a glue starved joint. So I can start stacking these things in. Okay. So the big key with the glue up, in my opinion, is to make sure that you have 100% coverage across that little piece of wood there, or whatever it is you're gluing. Just make sure you've got good coverage. I'm not making a cutting board, but I do want all these seams on here to be closed up between each of the pieces. I don't want any gaps in between the boards where there was no glue to hold them together. So I'm just making sure that I'm getting a good coverage on each of these. Then when we get done, we'll squeeze it all together, see how my squeeze out looks. It should be pretty uniform. And you can see I'm not like slathering these things. Some people get a roller out and just completely dunk their stuff in glue. I'm like, I've never been that guy. Never been that guy. But I do try to make sure that I've got a nice coverage of the entire surface. You also don't need to glue both sides of the wood. You can just glue on one side, and that should be plenty. Okay, 2 more to go here. This might need a little bit more glue on it. Get just a little dab will do me. There we go. Whatever I don't use here, I'll put on the next one. And I'm also going to tear off some of this tape that I don't need on here. I don't want the tape to interfere with, with the glue up. I just want it to be underneath the glue up. Okay. And last one. Okay. Nope, didn't get it all. All right, 100% coverage. We are good. I'm going to get all these edges lined up, get it straight, and time to bring in pieces here like this. Like I said, these are really big, but if I want them to be nice and clamped parallel, this is kind of the best way to do it, is with these clamps. Just kind of hold it down here and then just tighten. All right, so that is one panel glued up. And I didn't, oh, my microphone cable just grabbed that. I do need some paper towels. So the other thing to explore for me is possibly, like I said, putting some different pieces of wood in between there that can act as accent colors or something, right? So here's the one, all ready to roll. And I will set this aside. And the thing to remember is that if they're not perfectly flush and flat between each one, they'll be pretty close, because the actual lid is only like maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. So I don't require that entire thickness. So I can always flatten it down and then we'll hand plane it down to be the exact dimension it needs to be. So I have some thickness to spare. These are my other pieces here that I've got. And we can kind of play with these and see what we can get in terms of some other boards. Like I have this is walnut, and I wonder if I ran 2 pieces of walnut through here, what that would look like in terms of width. I could do 2 walnuts. I could do 2 lighter pieces of wood. And maybe that's what I will do, is I need to run 2 lighter pieces. I have some maple that I could run through there. So a piece of like maple in between might be kind of cool. How thick is that? That's pretty thick. Not thick enough. Not thick enough, but that is kind of cool. I could do some maple. And I actually have a board that I could trim off a couple of strips of maple off of, and it should be about the same thickness as this, which would make glue up kind of nice. So perhaps that's what I will do, is I'm going to cut a strip off of here, and let's say we measure this. And how wide did we make that last one? 4 3/4 inches, I think is what we did. I think that's where we were at, 4 3/4 inches. So if I wanted this to be 4 3/4 inches, 3 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 2 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch wide, I think is what I'm looking at, to get that same width. So if I take this down, actually I can just cut 1 3/4 inch and then cut it down. So let me measure 3/4 of an inch on here. I think the maple actually will look really good. I do believe that's going to be nice. And like I said, I don't have to use it. It's just something to try. Because why not? Right? I mean, that's half the fun with this sometimes, is just figuring out what makes, oh, I need this side of the board. What makes something look cool. And when you're kind of just making stuff up as you go, that's when you get some of your best results. All right, move over. Not right. Right there should be right. Okay, I'm going to cut 1 strip out of here, and then we can take it back over to the saw, the miter saw, and finish that cut. But to begin with, I'm going to rip a piece on the table saw, and then we will move forward from there. I do need to turn this heater off though. So I've lost all my heat now in the shop, but that's okay. It's for a good cause. And I need this, and we need to move this in. Okay, so I'm just going to set my gripper up really quick here, just to be nice and stable so I can push this through. And I think we're in good shape. I just need my remote. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut a strip off of this, and then we'll cut it down to size. Deal. Okay. Yeah, I probably need to get my blade sharpened. I get a little, I mean, I push this through pretty nice and I still get a little burning in here, even though this is figured wood. So it's going to give me a little bit of that, but thinking if I do one there and one there, that would look pretty cool. All right, I'm going to mark my length. Actually, I'll just, I'm going to take one of these over and use it as my length. So I need to move back over to the call it a crosscut sled. It's not a crosscut sled. It's a miter. It's a miter saw. But need to move my dust collection over there. And I've got this board and this board. All right, let's go over here and cut this down. I'm going to just measure this out, get the same width on here, or the same length. And need my headphones, no doubt. Definitely need headphones. It's a loud saw. Okay, that was good. All right, so basically I've got 2 pieces that should be equal in height. to the rest of these. So let's go back over here and look at what we've got. And we'll kind of just line these up a little bit, see if we can find a pattern that would be kind of nice. I'm going to turn my heater back on because it felt really good while it was on here. There we go. All right, so I'm thinking right here, and then 2 thick ones, and then, wait a second. There we go. Thick and thin, and another one like this. All right. That's interesting. That's different. So what do we think of this as another lid option? And then what I will do is I will make sure I trim off equal amounts on each side so that it stays symmetrical from the beginning to the end. But I think what I want to do is find wood that will be playing well against each other in terms of its grain pattern, like kind of meeting like this and then going in the same direction on the other side, maybe like that. Maybe this one can flip over. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, like that. And then like that. And then one here. And then these two need to go in this way. Is that going to work? That might work. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's probably my best arrangement for these. Is something that looks, hang on a second. There we go. So something that looks like this. It's kind of nice. I got these two that kind of meet towards, the grain flows towards each other right in the middle, which I kind of think looks kind of cool. So I don't know, we'll give that a shot. Why not, right? I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, right now, I'm just kind of thinking stuff up off cuff and having fun with it. So we'll get these glued up. And then after we get these glued up, I can start cutting these pieces down to length. The regular wood, I guess I can get rid of this. But we can get the regular boards cut down to the needed size that we're gonna use for them. I am going to get my tape here. Because if I do this ahead of time, instead of waiting till the end like I did the last one, like I said, the only reason for the tape is it just keeps glue from the squeeze out from getting on my clamps, and that keeps the clamps from working well if they get glue inside the little, it's got little teeth in here to help bite and adjust the tightness of the clamp, but if they get clogged with glue, they do not work as well. And that should be perfect. All right. So same thing we did last time. I'm going to take this first one, stick it in the clamp here, and then I'm going to start gluing these up. So I have to flip them, the sides that I want them to flip forward to. There we go. And then squirt glue all over them, spread it around, and then we're done with this part. I have to get more glue here. I used to get it in like a gallon container, but I find that I wouldn't use it fast enough, and with the changes in temperature and stuff, the glue it just wasn't good. So I wasn't using it as much as I needed to keep it fresh, and I would end up wasting a lot of glue. So I just buy these slightly smaller bottles, and they tend to last me for a while. And it's not hard. I mean, I could get it off of Amazon or whatever, but I'm usually walking through Walmart or Home Depot or something, and it's pretty easy to get it that way. All right, got a little glue on the side here. So I just pick one of these up every now and then. Now something I heard, I can't remember whose channel I was on, but they were talking about the glue, and they said that actually if you're working with walnut, that you're better off using just the regular, kind of like the white, almost looks like Elmer's, Titebond glue. So the original Titebond instead of like the Titebond 2, because they said the color works better with walnut. They said what you should not use is the dark one with walnut, which I found interesting because I thought that's what it was for. But they said, yeah, definitely use the lighter, like the normal one, because it kind of dries clear and you don't have any color tinting at all on the glue, so that when you're looking at your surface, all you're going to see is walnut. Even if it's got a little glue on there, it's going to be clear and you're just going to see walnut. So that's interesting. I might have to get some of that because I haven't had any of that. I always had the Titebond 2 or Titebond 3, which I always, that was one of those things where it was like in the beginning, when you're making cutting boards, everybody's like, oh, you have to use Titebond 3 because it's waterproof and everything else, which I find is a bunch of hooey. You don't really need that. Just Titebond 2 works fine for cutting boards. I've never had any problem with a cutting board that I've glued with Titebond 2. And it's not like you're soaking them in wood, or in water when you're not using them. So there's not that much water moisture that you have to worry about. Now, if you're doing a piece of outside furniture or whatever that's much more susceptible to the elements, then yeah, I would think maybe Titebond 3 is a better call, but not for like cutting boards and stuff. Because honestly, if people are washing their cutting boards, they've got bigger issues. I mean, you should just be able to wipe it off with a sponge or something. I think most people, the problem that they have with their cutting boards is they don't condition them over time, which they absolutely should. Just give them a new fresh coat of oil. But I don't think a lot of people do that. All right. Let me wipe off my hands here because I've got a lot of glue on them. And I don't want to get any residual on the pieces here, but that looks pretty cool. I'm not unhappy with this. Let me just wipe off a little excess here and I'll line these up. Okay. Get these pieces all lined up here. A little board here. Just kind of straight stack these in. All right. Bring the clamps in. It's got these little feet here, which I kind of leave out towards the back because they don't let this tip, because when all the weight from the clamp heads gets down to this end, they kind of want to tip backwards. So these kind of keep them up and parallel to the table surface. All right, and I'm going to just make sure these are all pressed down over top, and then just give them just a little squeeze here, just to get them started. And then once they're securely in the clamps, I'm going to move this one over. Once it's securely in here, I'll go ahead and give it a little bit more pressure. There we go. All right. So that is number 2. I kind of like that. Looks nice. I'm going to wipe off this glue that's inside here. It's a little bit squeeze out. Like I said, I'm going to clean this off anyway, so it doesn't really matter if it gets on the wood right now. I just want it to be not dripping all the way down the face. There you go. What do you think? Kind of cool? So we'll see. I've got 2 of these gluing up. Those will be I only may need 1 lid. So maybe, perhaps, I think I talked about this the other day, what I'll do is make 2 lids and I'll just give them both lids. When I sell it, I'll say, here's 2 lids, your choice. And you can pay extra because I gave you an option of lids. So why not? But at least that way I'm really not wasting any of this wood. And that's the big thing is I don't want to waste this wood. I want to use as little of this wood as possible, or have as little waste as possible when I'm using this. Okay, now I need to get down to brass tacks here. We need to cut this into its usable lengths, and I'm looking for my mark. So here's my mark right here. This is my flattened bottom, This is my mark. I have not trimmed, so if you look at the end of this board, you'll see that it is not trimmed up. This is the original factory sawmill, I say factory, the sawmill edge right there. So I definitely need to trim that off first. Then we can start milling these down to the proper lengths, but I can't measure that length until I get a square edge. And I'm pretty sure this edge should not be square. I mean, it's close, but we don't like close, we like exact. So I'm gonna bring it over to the table here and let's get this exact to start with. My dust collection is already hooked up. Just gonna turn my table here a little bit. There we go. All right, and I'm gonna grab my ears and we will make this first cut, then we'll measure some lengths. Kind of a generic smell. Doesn't really have a unique smell to it like some woods do. Walnut has a very unique smell when you cut it. White oak has a pretty unique smell when you cut it, but this is just kind of wood smell. All right, got my ruler. We need 21 inches, but before we measure and mark 21 inches, I'm going to walk over to my wall. I'm going to look at my drawing. I'm going to make sure that my large base for the entirety of that is 21 inches. Because you know what? I don't need to be screwing up with this wood. I need to make sure that I am exactly on the money here so that there are no screw ups. 21. Get my little marking thing here, get my square. Let's mark this exactly. All right, there's my 21-inch mark. This is my flat edge right here to put against the fence. I always like to make sure I've got that flat edge on there. Text message. Who sent me a text message? Harbor Freight. Thank you, Harbor Freight, for the text message. That's awesome. I don't need anything right now. Okay, let's go over here and make this cut. And then we will, I gotta move my table. And then we can make a second cut using this one as a benchmark. I need to move move this over just a little bit so that I have room. There we go. All right, we're good. Sort of. I need to put a magnet in here or a catch. This top drawer does not like to stay closed. All right, gonna get that one cut as close as I can to my mark right there. And I'm just gonna actually put this just to keep it from flipping up when I'm done. All right, first cut. After I turn on my not super hard to cut, but that is my 21-inch pieces right there. All right, I need 3 pieces to put the ends in the middle, the divider. And once again, I'm going to walk over. This is where I screwed up my last bases for whatever reason. So I'm going to get this number in my head. I need 8 1/8 inch long pieces. 8 1/8 inches. So the same thing stands. I'm going to take one of these boards right here. And let me just, 8 1/8 inches, basically 24 inches overall. So I get 25 inches out of here. Boom. That's fine. Oh, so that they paid for their base. Good deal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this down. I think this has already been cut. I think I trimmed this one off already, and I'm going to check that with my square. Just going to look at the light. Oh, that's perfect. All right, I can measure out my first one here, which is 8 1/8 inches. And then from there, I can make sure that all of my other ones are the exact size. No chance for screw-ups on this one. 8 1/8 inch. Is this my square side? Where's my square side? This is my square side. So I'm going to, flat side. That's okay. Is it okay? I don't know if it is. Yeah. Is this side square and flat? I think it is. It is. I'm going to measure that from this side just so I can keep what I know is my flat side here. I want to keep this. Actually, you know what? I like this one better. Hang on a second. Put that down. No, I think I'm okay this way. All right. I know. Indecision, right? And we're going to check that one more time here. 8 1/8 inches. And we're going to go over here and make some more cuts. Like I said, once I get one of these cut, I always use that first cut that I know is the correct size. I always use that as my, my guide for making my next cuts. Problem with that is if you get that one wrong, all your other ones are going to be wrong. So it is important that I get this first one correct. All right, I'm going to say this stuff, at least on the miter saw, cuts really nice. So, I mean, those are super clean. That's like a polished edge right there. They are super clean. Okay, we now have our material for our first and long base that'll have the storage compartment. So that's important. I'm going to set that aside for a moment. And now what we need to do is we need to measure for our shorter base, because remember, I didn't have enough wood to make 2 long ones. So I'm going to make a shorter base. That shorter base has a side length of 16 1/4 inches. So I need to get 16 1/4 inches and then 2 sides. So if I look at this board right here and measure it, see what we got for length here. So I can get one of the faces out of here. I've got almost 18 inches here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 16 1/4 on here because I've already got this one ready to roll. Come back here. Okay. 16 1/4. Get this one marked. And then I'm going to look at this next board and see what we have left over. Now, my leftovers on this board, not too shabby. I think I've got about 1.5 inches. I've got about 1.5 inches of leftover material right here. So not too bad waste-wise on this one. And on here, I'm going to need, I don't have a square end. Yeah, I do have one square end over here. So I'm going to need another 16 1/4. I'm just going to rough this really quick just so I can see it. I'm going to need a 16 1/4, and then I'm going to miss that. And then I need to go 8 1/8 off of that. And I'm going to need another 8 1/8 off of that one. And then that leaves me about 9 inches on the end of this board. So I'm going to cut this one first, just to make sure that we are moving forward and we've got the wood we need. Let me measure this again. 16 1/4 inches is this first one. And then I'll cut another 16 1/4 off of this particular one right here. One of these faces, that's my square face. Okay. All right. This one first. All right, I've got 2 boards now, 16 1/4. Didn't change my camera angle, I thought I did. And now I need to measure my 8 1/8 again because they are the exact same. One thing I can do to make life easy is just grab one of these. I know it's perfectly 8 1/8. And I can use that over here to basically get this lined up and give me a perfect cut. I need 2, I only need 2. So we'll cut these 2. And then we will be done cutting out the but we will be done with these parts of the construction. It's pretty simple. All right, let me get this lined up. Okie dokie dokie dokie. All right, these are, this goes over here. And I am left with this piece right here, these two pieces right here, and these two pieces to make the smaller, I say smaller, it's just a storage base. What's the, my words don't work too well today. It is the sewing machine base without a storage compartment. So we've got one with and one without a storage compartment. And we are washing the dust out of our throat. All right. Moving forward, what time is it? 12:51. Now, here's, I have a, I don't know, problem, just have a lack of clampage. I'm not, oh, so before I glue these up, what I need to do is I will need to make the pocket grips, the handholds, basically, I cut these right here in the wood. I cut these handholds. You can see that in there, hopefully. There you go. So I cut those on the CNC machine. Ow, son of a gun. Just caught me with a splinter. I cut those prior to gluing them up because it's just easier than doing it after. I used to do those on my router table. Well, I just drew blood with that base. Isn't that something? I used to do it on the router table with a bit and stuff, and it's just a scary prospect all around. Now I do it with the CNC machine. It's a piece of cake, and it works really fast. By the way, this was my only scrap left out of those 3 boards. So I think I did pretty good in, and there's actually, like, if one of these gets messed up, I've got a piece that is long enough. But yeah, so these are my leftover boards as scrap. I don't know what I can use these for. And it's nice wood. I just don't have anything to use it for. So let's go ahead, I think, and we can set up the CNC machine to do these handles. They don't take very long, but I do have to set the machine up for this. And it's going to take a minute or two to actually set up the CNC machine. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me work a couple of different camera angles here, and what angle would be best for this? I think maybe this one, perhaps. That's not bad. Give you a little insight into setting up the CNC machine. And then once the CNC is running, I think I can change this camera angle over here to get a much more zippy view. There we go. All right. Let's go over here and we will start setting this up. And I've got, oh, this is, I'm sorry, I had these extra pieces of scrap as well from the zebra, but overall my waste on that zebra board was pretty good. I can definitely live with that. Oh, I think I shut my computer down by accident. So I need to turn that back on, and I'm going to turn on my controller over here. That needs to be turned on. I am going to vacuum out some of the dust over here on my controller and on my computer just because it gets pretty messy after making cuts with that saw. Even though I've got dust collection hooked up, it still just throws so much dust around. Okay, so I mean, it just makes life easier if I get that stuff cleaned up. And my computer actually lives in a little box on the back of my monitor there. And so it can get a little bit extra dust and dirt in there, and I don't need it crashing on me. All right, the one thing I actually have here, first let me sign in to my computer and get things pulled up. I have a V-bit on here because I was doing some carving. So I need to get the V-bit off of here to start with. And we're gonna have to put in a, I've got a 1/4 inch upcut spiral bit that I use for doing this. So let me just go in here and loosen this up and take this bit out. If I can get my wrench in here, which is really difficult sometimes to do. Come on, you were just in there. Good grief. Oh. This thing is such a pain sometimes. There we go. Okay, you can be loose now. Maybe. Oh my gosh, so tight. There we go. And that came out. So this is the little V-bit that I use right here. I can put it in, you can see this is what I use for doing names and things like that. And then I have just a 1/4 inch spiral bit. It's a flat bottom, kind of makes a really nice clean cut. And that's what we will be using for this, as long as I can get this. Where's my little lock button? There we go. So put this in the collet, lock it down, get this tightened up. All right, that's nice and tight. And the next thing we need to do is open up, can you see my computer? Yeah, you can. So I'm gonna open up a browser because my software is browser controlled. Heaven forbid, CNC people are freaking out. It's like, some people, that's like the big thing that they don't like, is that, well, your software, you don't have any, if your internet goes down, you won't be able to use your CNC. I'm like, you know, if my internet goes down, I probably have bigger problems because mine's pretty reliable. So if my internet's down, I probably don't have power or something, in which case I'm not using this anyway. So there you go. Okay, and I'm just going to log into what is called Easel, which is the Inventables software for doing carving on the X-Carve. And I don't know what this is. They change it every now and then. There's like, oh, look at these cool projects and stuff. I guess they want me to make projects. Where is my... Okay, they've redone the project window, and I'm like, now I have to relook here and find stuff. But If I look right here, I've got one that says base handles. I'm going to open that up, and there is my base handle. And now I don't cut it in the corner. I just use a 0. So this is the X and the Y axis. I use that 0 point there because it's easier for me to figure that out as to where 0 is on the cut. And then I just mark my X. I'll show you. First thing I need to do is secure my wood in here. I'm going to have to change my clamps around a little bit probably and reposition them so that they are in a much smaller space. Let me go ahead and move this back a little bit. So I've got controls here that I can use to move with my keyboard. I can move this out of the way. So I'm going to reposition all of this, I think. And these are just little hold downs that I made. You see all these? I think you can. So I'm going to reposition these and put it in a spot that makes it easier. Plus some of my little screw inserts here have busted out over time. I really need to get them replaced, but it's kind of a pain. So, okay, you need to move over a little bit more. There we go. So it's kind of a pain because that's how I screw things down to the table, but I'll deal with that one day. I don't know when. One day. It'll happen. But for now, I'm just going to get this one back piece kind of close to where I want it. Not screwed down 100% because I have to get it lined up. I think that's about close. I will get my two boards here. They're going to be my end pieces. So I need these pieces right here. They're going to go in the ends, and they're going to get married together. So I need to figure out what's my outside edge, or at my outside side and the inside. So this would be maybe the inside of the base and the outside. I just need to figure out which one looks nicer for being the outside or the inside. And I'm going to go with this and this as my two outsides. And then I need to figure out which way do I want these to kind of run. So this way, because I need to figure out where the bottom of these are. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove an area right here, which will then be the handle. And I'm going to take it out of both sides at the same time. So when you pull them apart, there's a handle over here and a handle over here. But to start with, they will be together. So I need to get those lined up. And then what I will do is I will find the exact middle point, which is really easy. You just draw a line from this corner to this corner, and where they cross, that's your middle point. So I'm going to put this over here, and we're going to, yeah, I need to move this one a little bit. I'm going to get all of my clamps, my hold downs positioned. And the nice thing is, once I get this set up, I'm in the area of repeatable cuts now. So I can just keep making repeatable cuts with these things. So what I'm going to do is get maybe my front edge lined up here. My back edge lined up. Pull this down to it and tighten. So I'll tighten this first one down here. And the thing is, you really want everything to be square. There's a grid on the flatness here, which is really nice because it helps me square things up. This should be, I can position this right. Hello? Are you going to move? You're not going to move. Why aren't you moving? Oh, there's a screw in the table. That's why. Need to lift that screw out of there. So get the screw out of here. There we go. And then I'm going to position this. So what I like to do is have my blocks, I push in from all four sides, but I also have a couple of these little flat bar pieces that will push down on the very end of the board. So I need to just make sure this is square. And then I can put this in over here. And this end over here. There we go. And now Really starting to get this all kind of tuned in here. So now I can push this in pretty hard. I can lock this one down. I can press it really hard against there, which helps to hold these things down and flat. But I have one more trick for doing that as well. Let me get this one in here. And then I have one more that I'm going to put on this side to put pressure in. Because right now they can still move a little bit, right? So I don't want that. So I'm going to put this one in here. This one is going to hold it from this side. I'm just going to push against it while I tighten these screws down. And these little T-handle things make life so much easier. But now what I can do is I can take this little bit right here, this little flap thing, and I can screw it down so it pushes down over the seam. And I can do the same thing over here where this will push down over the seam, and that will completely hold it flat to the table. And that is all we need to do. Now, I need to mark the center line, so I'm just going to get a ruler. I'm going to get my pencil. It's already over here. And I'm going to find my center point. Remember I said I just go from corner to corner, so not hard to do. So I'm going to go from the back left corner to the front right corner and draw a line. And then same thing, back right corner, front left corner. And where those two lines meet should be that little X where they cross should also be right on the center of the boards where they meet, and it is. So if they're not meeting right where the boards come together, something's wrong. Your measurements are off or something. So anyway, I'm going to tighten this down just as a way of securing it in and holding it down. And I can do the same with this one if I want to. Actually, you know what? Let's do it the easy way. There we go. That screw is longer and it's actually going into the table, which it's a wasteboard. That's okay. All right, so now I have my points here. What I need to do is move this over, set it to the exact center where my X meets, and then we're gonna get this thing rolling. So let me go ahead and shift this. You can see it shifting. And I'm gonna get it lined up over the X there. So now I'm gonna go move it down to get closer, because it's a little harder now to start getting things lined up, because you really want to make sure that you're getting things centered. And I can move these in smaller and smaller increments as needed. So I really want to make sure, and I'm going to move all around to make sure this bit is exactly centered over that X that we just drew. That looks good. And that looks good. Okay, so we are centered over that X, which is a good thing. I'm going to raise this back up. Next thing we need to do, well, a couple different orders, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the dust boot, make sure it's in position to where it's in a good place, which it is. So I'll take that off for now. Now what we need to do is we need to tell this where the Z is. So we've got an X location, we've got a Y location, but the Z is the up and the down, right? We need to let the CNC machine know exactly where this surface is. There's a couple different ways of doing it. One is you take a piece of paper and you put that piece of paper on your surface of your wood, and then you lower the bit down until it's just kind of dragging across that piece of paper as you move it. I hate that. Not very accurate. I use this little bad boy, which is a Z-puck thing. It fits on here. The machine knows exactly how thick this little piece of brass is. You can see there's wires that connect in, and there's a clip that goes onto the collet. And what happens is I will send this thing a command. It will lower that bit down, and as soon as it touches that puck, it creates a circuit. It completes the circuit, and that completion of the circuit is a switch that says, this is your level, stop, and then it brings it back up. But then it knows exactly where that level is because it just adds the thickness of that puck to that Z measurement, and it knows. So it's super smart, it's super easy, and that's why I got it, because I'm all about the easy. Work smarter, not harder. Words to live by. So what I'm going to do now is set this up for a cut, which means I have to go into the software and tell it to carve. So there's a little process you go through. It wants you to measure the material. This is more important if you're doing a through cut. If you're going to cut all the way through the material, you want to know exactly how thick that material is. I'm not cutting all the way through the material, but I do know my material is 3/4 of an inch, so I've already got that down there. The type of wood, this is not cherry. I'm going to put a hardwood in here, like white oak or something. That kind of tells it the profile to use. Should it have white oak? Here's hard maple. I'll use hard maple. That's about as close as I'm going to get to the zebra hardness. But that just kind of tells it, okay, this is a hardwood. It needs to go a little slower and not cut as deep as it makes passes. So it has profiles kind of matched to these wood samples. Okay, so I'm going to confirm my material thickness. My material, it says, is it secure? Oh yeah, it's secure. I'm using a 1/4 inch bit. I'm confirmed that. Now you've got, like I said, the two choices. One is the manual with the piece of paper, and one is the probe, which I have. So we're going to use the Z probe. So I'll click that. It wants you to confirm the position, which is basically, is it in the place on the wood where it needs to be? It is. My clip is attached, so I'll click on that. Now what I need to do is bring the puck up and touch the bit, and that will just give it a test to make sure that it has conductivity between the two. If it doesn't, when it goes down, it'll just keep trying to smash through that puck because it's not getting a conductive reaction to it. So it just wants you to touch it so that it can complete a really quick circuit to make sure that it's working. It is. So now my touch plate is in place right underneath my bit where it's going to come down, and then I can start probing. I don't know if you can see this better on the other camera. Let's see. So yeah, it's off to the left there. So I can start probing. So you see it coming down. As soon as it hits that puck, it's going to complete the circuit and then come back up. So there you go. That's all there is to that. And I can move this away. Now, the next thing that, if you were going to be using this corner as your 0 point, the next thing you'd have to do is move your router all the way to this corner to set your XY axis. But because my XY axis is right here in the middle and I already have it lined up, all I have to do is say set XY 0. There it is. And that's all there is to it. The remaining parts are just basically getting the pieces ready to roll. I have to plug in my router bit, or my router needs to be plugged in because this is a router that this uses. I need to attach my dust collection, which is kind of a little bit of a makeshift. I've got the dust collection boot right here, but if I just leave this kind of on like this, it kind of hangs down and puts pressure in there. So what I like to do is I've got a little semicircle right here cut, and it's just slightly smaller than my hose diameter, and I just take a clamp and clamp this in place, and it holds it so that it allows the hose to come in from the top and move around without creating undue stress on the boot. So that is all set up and ready to go. And let's see, my dust shoe is attached. It wants to know if my spindle is on. I'll turn it on in a second. And the last thing I do is hit the carve button. When I hit the carve button, it's gonna go. So I'm going to put my ears on because this gets loud. And I'm gonna turn on the dust collection. We will start the router. This will not be super loud for you because I have noise reduction built into my system, but otherwise this would be super loud. Let me move my camera angle over just a hair before we start, and maybe I can zoom in just a little bit so you can watch it. So let me see here, right there. Let's get a little zoom here, shall we? There we go. Okay, so that's where the action is going to happen. I am going to start up the router. Okay, I know that was like 8 minutes of your life that you'll never get back. But actually, all things being equal, that's 8 minutes is really fantastic when you consider what I get out of this process. So it asked me, hey, how'd things go? Not well or great? Well, it went great. I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. First, let me raise this up. Take off the hose along with the boot, and I'm just going to let it sit down below here. And then I'm going to just move this off to the side so that I can remove this from the stock here. Sorry, I've got a, dang it. Anyway, that's far enough. I'm going to remove this from the table. I have to take these two little ones off here that I tightened up. That just gets that out of the way, and this one right here. And then I'll show you the finished result. And then really all I have to do is I can just loosen one of these and move it down, and that gives me enough slack to kind of pull these out. So I'm going to come over to here, and what I'm looking for is just a little bit of sandpaper just to take some fuzz off of here. That's interesting. Huh. It was just where the bit kind of caught into a little grainy area, and it's just kind of made an interesting pattern. So this is, let me get the close up. So this is how it was cut, right? So it basically cut what we call a pocket in the world of CNC. And you can see this pocket exists right here. But as I separate them out, now I have two handles right here. So when I insert these into the side of the machine, I'm trying to get it so you can really see the lines of the zebra would make it kind of interesting. But you can see, there you go. So you can see how these were cut. That's a good view. So when I put these in the sides of the machine, or the machine base, it gives me handles for my fingers to fit into, and allows the person using it to be easy to pick it up. What happens is if you don't put handle holds in the side, your base sits flat on the table, and then trying to get your fingers under there, you have to like slide it off the edge and then get your hand underneath. And I've been told from numerous people who have bases for their sewing machines and such that sucks, my wife included. So that's why I put the handholds in there. Everybody loves them. I've never had any complaints from the handholds. Everybody seems to love that feature. And like I said, I used to do this on the router table. Now I just stick a board in here, or two boards in there, get it lined up, do that little process you saw, which really I slowed it down for you guys, but it takes me a minute to set this up for a cut, especially when all my pieces are the same size. I just draw my little X and boop. And also my XY axis, if I move that bit back over, it should be in the exact same spot where it needs to be. So really simple. Once you get one of these set up, that's why I like to do multiple bases. Once you get one set up, it's just as easy to get all these things knocked out. I'm not doing the carving where I make the Singer logo, so this is really the only thing I need to do on the X carve. And the next step for us, or for me, would be to do all the glue ups for these. Well, I take that back. The next step is to cut the joinery and then do the glue ups. I might wait until Monday to do that. And the only reason I say that is that I've got two of these done. I might take a couple of these other boards that I've got and just make a couple of more bases, or get some other bases going. I don't like just making two or one or two bases. It's really not a good use of my time. I would rather have multiple, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. I've had as many as 8 of them in production at one time. 8 gets a little crazy. 6 is usually my target area, but I'd like to have 6 of them in process because it just makes things more, I don't know, economical in terms of my use of my time. If I'm gonna make like this, I might as well set up once and cut 4 pairs of these or 6 pairs of these, one right after the other, instead of each time having to go and set things up and do one. And it's just easier if I batch things. And so I might go ahead and mill up some wood and get some other bases cut out just so that I can have additional ones to put in the shop. I've also got these 301 bases. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but they kind of go crazy. Sometimes they'll sit forever and sometimes they go like this. So we'll see. Maybe I'll make a couple 301 bases. But I also, like I said, I want to try using my dado with my, my box joint thing and try a couple of those too. So we will, we'll see what Monday brings. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for now. I will set this one in the CNC machine and get the handles cut for this one as well before I do anything else, because it's already set up and it's easy to do. It's 8 minutes, boom, it's done. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. We talked about the Janka scale, or Janka, whichever you prefer. It's Janka though, I think. And how that relates to the hardness of the wood species that you might be using in your shop. I talked about some of the more common ones that I use and where they rate on the scale, and then some of the more exotic ones I have, like this, and how they rate on the scale. I'm going to say that cutting these so far, not a big issue. It has some of its own peculiarities in terms of the grain, which I'll have to work through, but for the most part, I'm not unsatisfied with working with the zebra woods right now. So hopefully that continues as we move forward. But anyway, we talked about that. We made some cuts. We did some glue ups. We did some CNC work. So nice little bag of things for today. And we'll see what Monday brings. I have no idea. Just depends on what I get done this weekend. But like I said, hopefully I'll get some milling done. 64 in the shop. Not bad. Got my little heater running. So maybe I'll mill this afternoon while I can keep some heat in here, because I don't think it's getting any warmer anytime soon. So you take care of yourself. I hope you stay warm. If it's cold where you are, stay warm, put a sweater on. And I think, as I said last week, hug each other more. That's a nice way to end the show, right? All right, y'all take care. I will see you back here on Monday.